going, my friends? This is Nick from the Nerd Frenzy Podcast. And today, guys, guess what? We got the wonderful, wonderful AOAN Paulsen.
How's it going, buddy?
How you going, my friend?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. I There's something about when I get to talk to you. We're always on the ship together, and I think no one else on the whole ship. I mean, there was people like you didn't really get to meet him yet, but Scotty, he came a little bit before you left. He was kind of like the same way with me, but you and I are the only people I know that actually share. Like, we're not the people like, oh, I know who the actors are, I know who the directors are. No, we try to know who everyone in the movie, like all the crew and everything, and then we also search out everything else that those people they put out. So and it's like, what people do with music. Oh, if you like the Beatles, you also like the Rolling Stones. But you and I do that we do that with movies. And I always thought it was odd when someone didn't do it that way, because I'm thinking, well, that's the only way to do it, right?
hmm And then you face all the ridicule from everybody like, oh my gosh, why do you need to know that? Like Useless Knowledge 101. Yeah, but for some
Useless.
reason, when you get to talking to other people like us, yeah, it's it's a good time. You can relate with them on like a higher purpose level in the movie
Oh yeah.
world.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. And of course everyone can feel what everyone knows what we're talking about. I think we just actually search it out is the difference, because we're all
Mhm.
passionate about movies, and the reason why is because movies are a reflection of the human experience. And who better, my friend, to teach that than someone who started in the 70s and started building their little beautiful resume as the wonderful John Carpenter.
He's one of the OGs. I
Hmm.
mean, he is the OG in a lot of different types of ways, like science fiction horror. Like a lot of people are gonna throw your Halloween out there as one of the original, just like benchmarks to go off of for like slasher horrors even today. It's insane.
And
He's OG.
and the movies and stuff they've made afterwards. And funny enough, most people would say that they haven't had as good as the original. But just the idea, any movie that is able to say, hey, guess what, we have 12 sequels made from this idea in the mid 70s from this guy who not only wrote this, he also did the music for it. He also edited it. He also directed it. I mean, I'm sure he played a couple cameos in there somewhere. He always likes to do that kind of stuff. This is like you said.
Yeah.
He's like one of the OGs, and this is a guy who looked up to directors like Alfred Hitchcock. And whenever you can say, "Hey, I am inspired by Alfred Hitchcock," immediately I'm going to think, okay, well, if you understand anything about Alfred Hitchcock, you know what suspense really means, and you know what not only suspense but what making a whole story around something that is not just saying, oh, here's a guy walking over here. No, it's usually like a psychomatic experience where it's like, oh my gosh, I feel someone's watching me, and the way the camera's moving around, and just the way and just you're immersed in this experience. And that's Alfred Hitchcock. And John Carpenter, he kind of did the same thing, but guess what? He's the OG Robert Rodriguez. He's the guy who says, I'm going to do all of it. Instead of a $40 million movie, it's going to be a $3 million movie, and it's going to be the same kind of quality you would expect. But guess what? I'm going to do all of it. And from what I've heard from everyone, he was wonderful to work for too. And even our favorite directors, I will just throw out maybe the best director in my opinion, James Cameron. I've been told he is an extreme pain in the ass to work with, but he is such a brilliant person. Like, people were like, well, no,
He's methodical too.
yeah,
He is methodical.
right. And the idea behind that, of course, is it will produce certain results, yes, but then again, you can also have someone else who says, "Hey, you did your movie in 102 takes, Stanley Kubrick. I did mine in two." Like Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood usually likes to do. A lot of times he likes to go out on the very first take. He's like, "Okay, that sounds good," and a lot of actors are like, well, I mean, I prepared 2 months for this part, And I mean, I can give you another take, and Clintus would be like, kid, we got it, okay? And then that would be it. And then you see the final product, and you're like, oh, they did have it, okay.
That's crazy.
But yeah,
Yeah.
John Carpenter, and funny enough, man, I've told you this before. I understand the huge appeal of Halloween. I really do. I really, really do. I just don't like slasher movies. I don't like movies that are about trying to like slowly find six people and torture them in some kind of way. It's and even though like movies like Saving Private Ryan are the best movies of all time, there's nothing harder for me to watch than babies being hurt and then like realistic things happening like a war movie or whatnot. And I think that like Halloween was good and it was great and it was wonderful and it did open up this beautiful thing. But I think what I know John Carpenter best is The Thing, and I'd love to hear your opinions on goods, bads, and everything too. But that's pretty much where, and I think John Carpenter. The first thing I go is The Thing right away.
Absolutely agree with you. I those are the three Kurt Russell. I mean, Escape from New York or Escape from LA. I enjoy them both for what they are. Escape from New York is just a primo classic,
Hmm.
and then you, of course, have The Thing. You know how I feel about The Thing. It's one of my creme de la creme, the best of the best. And then Escape from Little China. I mean, that is just a fun movie across the board. Uh, I don't know what to think of Ghosts of Mars. I mean, I thought it was really kind of stupid in a lot of ways, but it was enjoyable enough for me. And recently got to see Vampires. Thank you, Aaron Clark, wherever you may be. He's the one that said you got to watch that one. That's a gem. So I watched that and I enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, I mean, I could mirror exactly what you just said. All of that right there with him being, I mean, his whole upbringing from Hitchcock. I think he was a teacher at USC. I saw that somewhere. I can't remember, but he was talking about when he was in college at USC that there were three really famous directors, and I think Hitchcock was one of them that came and did like seminars at his college.
Mm,
And
good for
so
him.
that'd been neat if they got to actually, reminisce.
Oh.
But yes, the angles, suspense, how he can. His movies are so gritty; they're very realistic,
Hmm.
and then I mean even in his Savage movies, they are like I was watching that Vampires. Uh, I was just blown away by how savage it was, and a lot of parts. Yeah, you can see it's an '80s movie. It's you know kind of unrealistic in
It's actually a
parts,
'90s
but
movie, my
it's
friend. It's actually '90s.
is it?
Yeah.
Oh no, shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. But yeah,
it still
I get what you're
stood
saying.
up.
John Carpenter has this certain aesthetic with his movies that it's hard to explain, but there's like a certain like John Carpenter look to him, and then there's a certain like because he hated using visual effects, and you can tell there's certain movies like the Escape from L.A. The actual all the practical effects and everything they did looked beautiful because John Carpenter's a man and he loves hiring people who love that kind of stuff. But anytime you see visual effects, it wasn't John Carpenter's thing. I've noticed, and that's because he hated doing that kind of stuff. He's just like, no, I don't like this kind of stuff. And if I have to, I'll use it. It's a tool, as he said, it's a tool. But he didn't want to use it as much. But when you see the disgusting transformations in The Thing, it's and you said it before we started talking. You said it a couple days ago we were talking on the phone. You find that to be like harder to watch than the alien scenes, and and even though
Mhm.
I disagree, I also like don't disagree because I get what you're saying. It is, and I just watched it a few days ago again, and I probably watch The Thing every 4 or 5 years because there are movies like Lord of the Rings which I watch once or twice a year, but that's because it's kind of easier to watch because The Thing, it really does take a toll on you, and it's because the whole movie is this nasty, psychological journey between all these characters, and the whole goal of this sad tale is who to trust and who not to trust. And immediately that pretty much puts this nasty stomach ache, butterflies you have in the whole time. And not only is it like this, oh, who's the thing? Not only are they just stabbing just scary little shots and stuff, whatnot, but they're also pitting everyone together, against each other, and you're seeing like humanity at its worst, like the was it Children of the Flies kind of thing,
True.
and you just see
True
barbarians.
human nature. Yeah, survival instincts 101, kicking in and taking over. Like that blood test scene, separating them like that blood test scene was intense. Intense.
And it was a slow burn, and that's what, like, whenever I want to recommend any kind of like horror movie, for example, to someone, I would recommend any kind of movie that instead of you seeing the monster just being running all over the place, you know that the monster's close, but it takes 5-10 minutes to get to the monster. I think even though I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of the paranormal activity movies, I I love the fact of what their goal in the whole movie was to have like 100% of the movie just people walking around, and then the way that, like, oh, what was that noise, and then there's a certain kind of sound that picks up, and then you can kind of like, and then all of a sudden your heart starts beating a little faster, your stomach ache starts happening, and you're like, okay, can you please show the thing already, because I have a stomach ache, and then it doesn't for like a long time afterwards. That's the best way to establish suspense, and John Carpenter was able to do that in the thing so well that you're sitting there almost getting pissed off at him. He's like, okay, John Carpenter, if you don't tell me right now, this, and then you're talking about the blood stain, who it is, I am going to hate this movie forever. And then he makes you wait 2 minutes longer. You're like, okay.
And Clark was human, huh? Which makes you a murderer, don't it?
Palmer now.
This is pure nonsense. Doesn't prove a thing.
I thought you'd feel that way, Gary. You were the only one that could have got to that blood. We'll do you last.
and then of course,
You who did that too, I think took off of him maybe a little bit. Tarantino.
oh yeah, I can see that very well, because Tarantino is also, and I would say, I said Robert Rodriguez earlier, but I would say Tarantino is a better version of Robert Rodriguez. He's
Kind of.
I mean, and because Robert Rodriguez has, I would say, 3 or 4 solid movies, and then the rest are kind of like eh. When I would say Quentin Tarantino has 9,
8,
yeah,
9 solid
yeah,
movies.
so
Quite a few.
yeah, but
Well, I think they're super fans of Carpenter anyways. I think they are.
and
I'm pretty sure they are.
and why not? Because you can kind of see in the way their style of directing, they have a certain kind of comical approach to it as well. And John Carpenter, you can see in all of his movies, there's a certain cheese factor that you approve of, because it's just a certain amount. It's just like for example, John Carpenter's music for the most part is kind of like, when you watch it, you're like, oh, I can 100% tell you, because that's a synthesizer and he's on his keyboard, an 80s synthesizer keyboard, that is definitely an 80s movie right there. Or that's, he just, it's somewhat like I used to do this thing too, where I would just learn how to play it on the piano, like Happy Birthday to You and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and I remember thinking like, oh yeah, one day I'll be like doing the same thing John Carpenter's doing. And funny enough, I maybe one day I'll share it, but I have actually made a lot of music on specific apps that they kind of have certain sounds that you can kind of make your own music with. And I will say that even though not close to the awesomeness as John Carpenter, there are definitely beats that have John Carpenter flair to them.
Hmm. There's not his music is spot on in almost every single movie he's ever made. I mean, just spot on. Oh no, I was thinking about, obviously the first one pops in my head, that dun 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 dun, or what, and the thing that's just menacing the whole time, relentless
Yeah.
the whole way through. It makes you feel cold and alone.
It's like a heartbeat too, like almost like, and it,
Hmm.
and you're right, and then and you just said it perfectly. You said it better even the heartbeat. You said cold and alone, and of course it's supposed to be act like they're filming in Antarctica. I believe they filmed in British Columbia, but you're thinking Antarctica. Everyone knows what Antarctica is. It's the coldest place in the world. So and you can see it. And the funny thing is whenever you're seeing the actors, they're all out when it actually is cold, and you can see like the frustration in their acting. And that's one thing that I love Ridley Scott for, especially in Alien, where he has all the characters in the movie establish a certain rapport from all these little mannerisms and stuff that they have, and it's just spot on, and it makes you feel like, okay, even though this guy over here is kind of a prick, I do not want him to die. And the same thing goes 100% for The Thing, where you're looking at every single character, and then the dogs, of course. No ethical person wants to see a dog hurt. So and I heard that
Horrible.
whenever they saw it in the theaters, a lot of people walked out in the scenes when they were screwing with the dogs. And I'm thinking, yeah, I get that, because yeah, no one wants that. Just like if I remember watching in Aliens vs Predators Requiem, which by the way was garbage, but I remember one scene that not only was it
Pregnant. Don't tell me it was a pregnant woman.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a little messed up. I thought too.
It made me cringe
I
to no other degree I've ever cringed in when I watched a movie. I remember going, okay, even though this movie sucks, I hate it so much more just because they try to go for like the soul, and no movie does that. I mean, unless like Game of Thrones, yes, they do that kind of stuff, but guess what? They have the
You expect it.
well, and they have the perfect
And
story that kind of allows to you be like, okay, well that hurt my heart, but damn, that's good storytelling right there. But Alien vs Predator Requiem sucked, and luckily John Carpenter movies do not suck, and for the most part, I mean, I would say there was a part like from like 1974 to like 1988 and 89 where he was consistently putting out somewhat quasi decent movies. He had a hit and then a miss and a hit and miss like any other decent director would be doing. But then he kind of just got older and just kind of slowed down and just didn't really do as much anymore. But I mean, he had that like 10-15 year thing where John Carpenter was like hey, I got my artistic expression from watching John Carpenter movies.
hmm yeah, he well, I mean, I guess I think about him this way, anyways. He's got 10 good movies or maybe 8 good movies, but he's only got you know 3 or 4 that are cult classics. I wouldn't even
Mhm.
say they're like a lot of people are going to put them anywhere near on the top of their list, and a bunch of them probably haven't even been seen by a lot of people,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Mhm.
But uh, think about all the kids these days that have never seen a movie like The Thing. That
Oh
you know
man.
that,
Even
but
the 2011 version of the thing, although had certain decent qualities to it, when you try to
it
mix
did.
when you try to mix visual effects with what they were doing, it does not work the same way, because when you're watching scenes from the thing, and there's that one part when the thing is he just touches his face and it starts like morphing into him, and he's like trying to
It
he's trying
starts like sucking it.
yes, and he's trying to
Yeah.
pull away, and it's you're just sitting there going like, get off of him. And
hmm
and this is of course the same guy who 15 minutes earlier was like in the same blood scene when he goes, hey guys, I know we've all had a rough day, but if you don't mind, get me out of this fucking chair.
hmm Yep.
Oh
I
man.
would not like to spend your last night tied to this fucking chair.
Right,
Yeah, I
that's what it
remember
was.
that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh
what about
man.
the anytime those tentacles slid across the floor at anything?
Oh
I
jeez.
mean, I remember seeing that. I think they filmed most everything on in that movie.
Hmm.
Like when it jumps at you or does anything like that, they filmed it all in reverse so they could all have it like and then or filmed it one way and then played it back the other way, so it looked
Oh
that's
man.
how it folded out. Yeah, there was and the best practical effects. I don't know a movie that has better.
And and and,
I really
and you're absolutely right. And there is kind of like I said, it's hard to explain because I don't want to like sound like I'm not giving it a compliment, but there are parts when you're looking at it and it's just so like disturbing that it almost looks fake. But
Mhm.
and
Oh, definitely.
you know what I'm saying, and there are parts too. Like this is also a movie that was made. I mean, it was put out in '82, so it was probably made in '80, '81, and
Mhm.
this is a guy who like a special makeup effects guy and animatronics people and all these. They're just doing these little gadgets and stuff to kind of do it. And when you see like this real time situation of this happening, and you're like, oh wow, like there used to be like cut scenes, and then there'd be like once Dracula was standing there, and then all of a sudden, next thing he was like Dracula with long fingernails. It's like oh, but you can see like the cut. Now it's like you're seeing it happen in real time. It's disturbing because. Like the same idea with Alien. Like I always like the idea I get with H.R. Geiger, he wanted to incorporate the idea of being raped, and that's what he wanted to put out with the alien creature.
Like his was a, a little bit different, but at the same time, I get what you're saying
And
with
it's the same idea. Like no one no one likes a movie where like an alien is dropping an egg into you without your permission, and that no one likes a movie
yeah.
where someone's saying, "Hey, I'm about ready to take over your body," like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I'm going to just
Hmm.
I don't even, and that's one thing they don't necessarily explain what's happening to the person as this is all going down. They just say, you're being assimilated to my,
In a in a
DNA,
gritty,
and
in a very gritty, physical way that is visually uncomfortable to watch too. Usually,
and Cole, to the point where I still like I can't. I'm just like, whoa, geez, man. I'm a 36-year-old man, and I'm sitting there looking at this, going like, okay, geez. And there's very
yeah.
rare things, and the only reason why I watch it is because I really just can't get enough of how they did it. I mean, you guys are brilliant because I am about ready to throw up, and not just because it's disgusting to look at, but because I can see like the person, the human is getting, they're not just getting their life taken from them, but they're like in a painful manner, like being eaten and then slowly like being breaking, and then all of a sudden they're being breaking, their mouths turning into the tentacles, and then they're like slowly probably feeling like the thing, and then you don't know what they feel like, if they're in the most pain. Are they dead? Are they
At what point?
zombies?
Yeah. At what point are they just like not themselves and then they go back to being themselves because there's always some minute detail that somebody notices that
Hmm.
they don't know, like, oh, what were you eating earlier? I was eating a steak. No, you weren't. Mac and cheese. Let's score. Like there's always
Oh.
some minute detail, but they seem to. How does the thing know what all? How to they must have a certain amount or they must keep a certain amount of the knowledge in their head or because they still have enough
Yes.
to walk around in
Yes.
amongst them and know what to do, I
Yes.
don't know.
John Carpenter himself said that they've been doing this for who knows how long, and they do. When they take over and assimilate, they've been doing it to more places than just Earth because they crash land on Earth. That's the thing. So they're like the ultimate parasite. That their whole goal is just to go places and then just destroy them and then go somewhere else. And there is nothing like I said. It's not like and like there was a decent movie that I think got underlooked. Life. I think it was Life. No. The one with
The one with,
Jake Gyllenhaal and
yeah,
Ryan
Ryan
Reynolds.
Reynolds.
Yes, and
Yeah,
I thought it was because
that
it was
did.
kind of like a brainchild of Alien and The Thing, and I'm thinking even though there were parts that I didn't necessarily care for, I liked the concept they were going for, and then it also had a very disturbing ending. And there's nothing more uncomfortable than seeing someone against their will being transformed in some kind of demonic monster. It's just and then like you said, it's showing this in real time. Like you're seeing the transformation happening, and there's been very few movies where you see this, done effectively. One I can think of very well off the top of my head. American Werewolf in London. You see his transformation,
Uh-huh.
and it makes it look so painful, and he's screaming, and it's like it sucks, and you're like, okay. And of course that makes sense because your whole body is changing into a different being. So yes, it would be the most painful experience. You want someone to shoot you in the head at that exact moment you start feeling that pain. And guess what? Nope, you got to feel it all. And very very little movies, only the best have put out that like no, we're gonna show this all to you because even though you won't be able to stomach it, you will thank us later.
Hmm. Yeah, and you can't get it, and you couldn't get away from it either. I mean, you just couldn't. You you couldn't get away. How would you get away? You don't even. I don't even trust. They leave us so open ended. It's. I mean, it makes me never want to go to.
Yeah, on a
Ever.
very fictional thing, you're still like, no, Antarctica, the continent, you can go screw yourself. I don't want to go over there ever.
Yeah, I heard Carpenter say one time in an interview that he thought The Thing was the best movie he ever did
Oh,
so
okay,
far, or
okay.
he said that was the one he thought was best that he ever did. But I don't know. I tend to think of little funny thing. What about all the ridiculous outfits that Kurt Russell has worn, even in The Thing,
Hmm.
to be a helicopter pilot in Antarctica with a sombrero and a big ass beard? I mean, just the way he acted, ultimate badass. And then Big Trouble Little China with the muscle shirt, and also it's just
And his
ridiculous.
attitude. One thing, and this is one cool thing. I rarely bring it up like an actual actor unless I like the actor. And Kurt Russell's one of those guys like Keanu Reeves. I would say that he sounds to me like an outstanding person, and
Yeah, yeah.
most of our heroes are probably not outstanding people, but he sounds like one of those people who's like would see you and me and then say how's it going guys and then keep walking instead of just like it'd be like one of those other people.
Yep, exactly. I think from what I've heard, he is a really good dude in real
Yeah,
life.
just like a hippie kind of
Just
guy.
in random years, yeah, decent person,
Yep,
down
yep,
to earth.
yep. Very open minded. Yep, but and there's one thing about him and John that I've heard in separate interviews, many years later, and a couple interviews I've seen. They have the utmost admiration for each other because from what John Carpenter said, when he had Kurt Russell in his first one, Elvis, and then he had him in the second one, which would have been, was it been The Thing? No, no, it would have been Escape from New York. And I guess,
Hmm.
and then you see him in The Thing, and I guess what John Carpenter would have him play like a completely different type of character, and Kurt Russell was always 100% down for whatever John was, and I guess he was just always easy to get along with, anyways. And then from like we were talking about earlier, so is John Carpenter. He's awesome. So I guess their little bromance allowed for them to make like 5 movies with each other. So hell yeah, man.
Hmm. When they kept coming out like that, how do you not? What do you think is his most iconic character? Obviously, I don't know. It'd be Snake.
It can't be The Thing because the what makes The Thing great is not necessarily Kurt Russell, as badass
Right,
as he is.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the solid script and the solid storytelling and the solid cinematography and the very solid practical effects that made and then just the suspenseful way of John Carpenter that made it the best movie. And I said it's if Aliens is a 10, this is a 10 too. But if I had to say no, it can't be a 10, then it's a 9.9. I mean, but then everything else below it, all my favorite movies like Predator and whatnot, I don't consider them to be, even though I love me some Predator, I would not consider it to be the same kind of
To me,
quality.
that's like a nine.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
yeah, which
Yeah,
it's a
it'd
nine.
be a nine.
Yeah, you can compare this to Born Identity and all these other kind of movies. That's how good Predator is, but it's not The Thing. I mean, it's yeah, it's just I'm sorry,
Right.
but the good thing about like Escape from New York is it was also one of the first ones like I said, completely different character from Kurt Russell. He was doing, and then now he's playing Snake Plissken, and he's like this like badass old war vet. And that's one thing John Carpenter says too, is he loves kind of like the common man, and like not like the person, like the rich person. He likes the common person, and he thinks that those where a lot of the cool hero tales lie. But yeah, he just, he come out here, he has a patch, he's just badass, he's just walking around this really cool dystopian future, which, it's funny because talking about the top two dystopian future movies so far, maybe to this date, you could maybe say that might be up there with like Blade Runner. I mean, it's just
it's arguable.
I mean, I would say
Yeah.
Blade Runner is better, and I would argue that all day. But if someone said, "Well, what about John Carpenter's
The
Escape from New York?" I'd be like, "Yeah, that's a damn good movie."
good taste in the same actor, Lopan, and the guy that made the eyes in Blade Runner.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Same
oh yeah,
actor.
good connection. And that's funny. We used to play that game that we would play that connection, the actor, and there was no one that was good as you and I. And I remember just you and I just had so much fun doing that for hours on our little boat trips.
Oh, that was so much fun. That was so much fun. That's why he was such a good Lopan. I've, you know, obviously, I try to brush up on my John Carpenter whenever I can.
Sure.
But I've heard some pretty crazy things, crazy trivia things about John Carpenter. Like in that movie Big Trouble Little China, he didn't have the access to like wires and stuff to make all those guys do, crazy martial arts, jumping across a room like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type of stuff, new age. So they use trampolines. So can you imagine filming that? Just these guys jumping around in it, and they have like masters of kung fu in there doing stuff. And if you notice some things, I've seen this somewhere too, and it is 100% true. When I watched it back, if you notice watching that movie, there's pulls from tons of video games from his stuff too. Like look at the lightning guy on
Mortal Kombat you're talking
Big
about.
Trouble Little China. Looks just like Raiden. What about Metal Gear Solid?
Well,
I mean,
they've said that for sure is.
is there a connection? Like,
I mean,
how does that work?
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
the guy's name was Solid Snake, and his name was Snake Pinkerton, and he had a patch, and he was kind of doing the same kind of job. It's 100% obvious that was what they were going for, and they even they said in the interview. But the Mortal Kombat thing, I'm not. Because I know Mortal Kombat,
It
the
looked
game.
like
No, I mean, I know, and the game came out in 1992, and this Big Trouble in Little China came out in 1988. So come on. Talk about being inspired by a movie that came out only a couple years before you made your wonderful hit. And the way they were like going, hey, and then all of a sudden electricity was coming out. They had the big old things and they were flying up. Oh, I wonder if you're thinking about Raiden right now. Ed Boon and Tobias. Yeah, it was obvious that that's what was going on. And you know what? Absolutely. Why not be inspired by something like that? And I guarantee if you ask them, they'd say that same thing. But yeah, God, talking about, and I just did Mortal Kombat with my nephew, and I love me some Mortal Kombat. And that's when I get to see like, and I watched Big Trouble in Little China a few days ago just to kind of get a nice recap of it again. And it is corny, I will say, and we talked about that earlier. And it's definitely on the more over the top corny than John Carpenter's typical stuff. And I think that was obvious, but it's just like I said, Kurt Russell being kind of like a jackass version of Han Solo. I mean, that's the best way I could probably put it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. It was like he was running around thinking he was a hero.
This is an ordinary guy doing dumb things and just happen to get lucky.
Yeah. And then the whole time the hero is that little Chinese guy that's with him, the little short guy.
Oh, kicking everyone's ass.
Yeah, he's sitting there getting in all these really bad scenarios. That had good practical effects too. That floating alien with all the eyes.
Yes, it did.
Creepy.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, that hairy monster that was running around.
Yeah, and
But
it has
I
like
don't know.
it has like a weird like alien like elephant looking face, and it has these little things that are just doing like this, and it's almost cute, but then it's like not at all. I don't know. It's hard to explain. And I actually, when I did a little picture, I haven't showed
like
it.
Slimer's cousin with herpes.
It's like Slimer's cousin, but like a rockier, yeah, with herpes. Yeah, there you go. That's it, like with warts or genital warts, something like that. Yeah, I don't know why it had to be genital warts. Can't just be warts.
Uh,
Oh, to have a disgusting mind.
oh, I do a little bit. No, he was definitely gross. I don't know.
Yes.
I used to, if you, obviously, The Thing is my favorite, and I would argue that it's the best out of all of them.
I mean,
But
it's one of the best movies of all time. Yeah.
yeah, and even in Carpenter movies, like Escape from New York is not far behind The Thing in my book. Like, it's not.
And I understand completely what you're saying. Like I said, it was one of those movies, and I still don't say it's better than Blade Runner, but that's because I mean Blade Runner to me is like it for sci-fi movies. It's the same thing that like Alien is to me, and luckily they're both directed by the same dude, the myth, Ridley Scott. So, but yeah, so it's hard for me to say, but still the dystopian future. I've seen a lot of movies that have modeled themselves completely after their takes, and they both came around the same time. So it's not really they both did it, you know. So, but I will say, Escape from L.A. You liked it. I liked it. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. That I enjoyed enough to watch through it every once in a while.
Yeah,
If I'm gonna break
yeah.
out Escape from New York, I'll watch that one behind it just for
I like
you know.
Kurt Russell is worth it because his because obviously the first one he has this kind of badass thing, and the second one he almost has this like almost meta like obviously I'm Kurt Russell badass. And he's like when he does the basketball game, he's like doing all the in like life or death situations. I remember at the time watching it going like, oh, this is awesome, and I watched it probably 5 years ago, and I remember thinking it's not as good as the first one, but it's definitely like it's not when you think of a bad sequel, it's definitely not a bad sequel. It's just it's and from what I heard, it sounds like it was just another reason for Kurt Russell and John to just kind of hang out and bromance again. So that sounds cool.
It has moments. I liked Steve Buscemi.
Oh,
I
he's
liked his
always. I mean,
character.
he's always great. He's one of those guys that like a lot of people don't really like. Oh yeah, I don't know the guy's name, but I like I put out William H Macy or Willem Dafoe or something like that. Those kind of people were like, oh yeah, I don't know your name, but damn, you always are brilliant. And yeah, he's one of them too.
He is. What was oh God, had her Pam Grier. She
Yeah,
was in
the transsexual or something. Yeah, transvestite.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is odd because Pam Grier is beautiful, and you're like, well, you're like, yeah, you're doing all these things to her, but yeah, she was a
She's
beautiful.
like one of those people. What is it? It's like Michigan George or Tennessee Bob or whatever their names
I
are.
forget.
She's one of them. LoJack something.
LoJack.
LoJack O'Neill. Who the hell knows?
Pam, and you know what's funny? Pam Grier, she was actually in Jackie Brown, a Quentin Tarantino movie. And of course, she was in Ghost of Mars. But like I said, okay. And this is funny enough. I remember watching her in Ghost of Mars, and I remember thinking, "You are one of the worst things about this movie." And it sucked because I like her. I've always liked her. She's good in movies. But she was. I could see her acting, and I remember thinking, "Well, that's a shame." And then it's a shame whenever Ice Cube is doing a better job acting than you are.
Oh my God. Or the girl off of Species. Oh,
Natasha Hendridge, yeah, well, she was looking beautiful and still doing a better job than Pam was doing. But it's fine. Like I said, there's certain times whenever you can see, like, as John Carpenter's charm is also sometimes his problems, which is sometimes his movies kind of look cheap, and that's because he's kind of I mean, regardless of what you want to call him, he's kind of an independent director. He just kind of every once in a while they would say, "Hey, independent director, you did really good in your indie movies that actually ended up being blockbuster movies. So how about you make this blockbuster movie for us?" He's like, "Okay," but then he'd go right back to like, "Okay, I'm gonna go make my $3 million movies again." That there's something that you can't help but appreciate that. There's like people like Elijah Wood. A lot of people don't give him credit because they like, oh yeah, he's he was in a couple really good movies, and he kind of just is a bunch of weird movies now. Daniel Radcliffe, another one, and I'm thinking, if you guys watch these guys' movies, you'll see that they're actually like every single movie they're trying something completely like maybe like odd or whatnot, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for actors who do that. And then like people like Willem Dafoe get lucky because people see that, but then when people like Elijah Wood do it, no one ever watches those movies because they look like a typical B movie. But it's
I agree. Daniel Radcliffe was a great one to throw out there too, because some of his movies are totally original.
Oh,
they are
yeah.
great. I love Florence. I thought that was great.
Yes, it was great, and the special makeup effects that when you see him in the transformate when he's going through the whole movie, and then finally by the end he's like, I'm a full demon now. And then you see like the story play out the way it does, and if I asked 100 people right now if you saw that movie, maybe like 6 of them would have, and then out of those 6, maybe like 4 of them like, oh, I forgot about it though, and I'm like, oh, I forgot, but it was a little hidden gem. You're like just like Swiss Army Man. That's another hidden gem that's like so outrageously bizarre. But I remember watching it with my wife, and we were just looking at each other the whole time like, what an odd movie. But then you watch them in like The Jungle, and it's the same thing. But yeah, but you can't look away. And that's how and a lot of these people have that kind of charm. And John Carpenter is kind of like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, where he kind of takes a lot of these actors that might not necessarily be like special in any kind of special way, but then he kind of puts out these kind of like oddball performances from them. And then when you think about like a John Carpenter movie, you also think about the characters in it too. Like David Keith has been in a few of the he was in They Live, which we'll talk about in a second, but he's in the Thing, and he's in one more with there's just 2, but all these people who talk. 2 that you remember? Okay. But yeah, all these people that work with him to some degree, like their best performances are in a John Carpenter movie. And I even though Keith Keith's another good actor, but Keith David, even though he actually is, I know I always, and even though they're like one's white, one's black, and completely different actors, but no, Keith David, I will say that he's one of the few. Him and Kurt Russell are one of the few that I can say like so many talented things about him. But for the most part, a lot of these other characters are kind of just John Carpenter characters. And every once in a while you see like, oh, Lee Van Cleef was the guy trying to figure everything out in Escape from New York, which we love him in spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood. But at the end of the day, a lot of these people, they're John Carpenter properties, and you're just like, that's all you can think of, because I can't think of Lee Van Cleef doing anything besides that, and then spaghetti westerns.
Stacy Keach in the second one doing the exact same role.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm not thinking. Well, then I immediately think of his brother, National Lampoon's Vacation. What do you think that poor dog must have had?
Oh man, oh, that's the sad part, by the way, because at the end of the day, you still did drag a dog. Because Clark Griswold, of course, as we all know, he's the lovable idiot, but we sometimes tend to forget that he does some really really shitty things.
That's hard to not laugh at. I was watching Escape from L.A. and I saw the Keach, and then immediately that popped in my head. It's like, oh, hey, watch National Lampoon's like next.
Speaking of little cameo, Bruce Campbell. Do you remember his cameo in that?
Oh yeah,
the weird doctor, yeah.
The surgeon,
and he had like the weird.
Beverly.
It is. You're looking at me, you're like going. I mean, I can see it because I know Bruce Campbell's in this movie, because there was a time, especially in the '90s. I think it was probably after, because oddly enough, I saw Evil Dead 2 first, and then Evil Dead 1. And then when I saw Army of Darkness, I'm like, okay, I'm sold. Bruce Campbell's my love forever. And then, every single time I saw him in any movie, I got giddy because I'm like, it's Bruce Campbell. And then, of course, seeing him in a movie with Kurt Russell, you're thinking, Okay, yeah, I am happy. I am a happy person.
Hmm. Who was it? Was that somebody famous that played the surfer guy?
Yeah,
It was like,
that was what's his face? Played Mephisto in the Ghost Rider. Fonda. He's Peter Fonda. Peter Fonda.
okay, yep, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
It's sad that I had to
Yeah.
resort to his role in Ghost Rider, not Easy Rider or something like that. That would have been a way better movie to define him. But I said
It
Ghost
works.
Rider. Okay, whatever. That's what I guess that works.
It works. It works. It works. I
um.
There's just so many cool things. Like, uh, I heard Escape from New York. I remember watching the making of it a long time ago, and they said that a big part of St. Louis had burnt. Somewhere in St. Louis had burnt, so they went in and got rights to go in there and make the movie. And he said it was a blessing because they could tear down streetlights however they wanted. They could mangle it because it was just a bunch of charred buildings and burn out buildings and stuff. And they got to have free reign over going through all of that. And
hmm.
for the time, they made it look pretty good. I was convinced.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
filming all of it at night. I mean, just think what that would have been like, because in that whole movie's at night.
The whole thing
I'm
because
pretty
it's supposed to
sure.
be like it's supposed to be within like a twelve
Yeah.
hour period or something like that, and
I'm just looking at that watch the whole time. Oh, is he getting more sick? Is he getting what's next? The second go around, I was like thinking to myself in LA, yeah, this might be bullshit. They did
yeah.
this to him, but the first one, you're sitting there thinking, how much time does he have? How much time does he have? How much time does he have? With no regards, that movie killed off big main people like it was nothing. Uh, what's oh, Alien? Um, Harry Dean Stanton,
Oh yeah.
eh, him and his girlfriend, and the main bad guy. What's his name? Isaac
Isaac
Hayes.
Hayes,
Uh,
which was kind of
yeah.
that was a weird thing, by the way, if I'm being honest, because Isaac Hayes, yeah, he was the bad guy, he was the group leader, but whenever the president killed him, it kind of the whole thing just kind of felt weird.
Yeah. The president, they sure got a bleak outlook on the American government.
Oh, and one thing, I mean, let us talk about that a little bit, my friend, because if like,
Right.
and John Carpenter has a few movies that he does that to, but one he loves taking stabs at the government, and from what I heard, oddly enough, and I would say in my lifetime, I've heard most people talk very highly of Reagan, but apparently John Carpenter was not a fan at all of Reagan, and so I guess he modeled the president kind of off of that, and like almost like, and it was just, and
No shit.
yeah, oh yeah, and that's how he made apparently like the whole They Live movie, as we were discussing earlier, is one big old political agenda to just obey your consumerism. And guess
Mhm.
what? The people that are making you, like pretty much brainwashing you, are not just rich people that got rich off of scamming you. They're actual aliens. And
Mhm.
so John Carpenter was taking a stab at our actual American situation about how the poor keep on getting poorer and then the rich keep on getting rich, and he was just taking a stab at everyone, and he did it through, funny enough, Rowdy Piper.
Right. Yeah, that's subliminal messaging and all it like throughout. Yeah, I mean, it is totally relatable to the time and that even now. Yeah.
I would say especially to now, because the crazy thing now is, as a country, we are starting to realize that we have possibly been being lied to in a much more broad sense, and a much more sneaky, and not for the good of the country kind of way, but more for the government to take more control and to have more power. And John Carpenter in a few of his movies has put this stuff out, saying like, "Hey guys, there's a lot of bullshit going on right now, but hey, God bless America." And these little stabs. When you're young, you're thinking, "Okay, don't be an asshole, man." But you and I have served our country, and
Yeah.
luckily what we were doing, not directly. We didn't, we never had to directly go shoot at, anyone or whatnot. We just were on a ship
Right.
that were just kind of just there, deployed and whatnot. But there are people who sometimes get these orders that probably feel very unethical, and that's probably because they are. And John Carpenter's pointing these out, and it's a lot of times it's quite obvious, and I'm surprised no one's killed him yet.
He still throws a splash of like unbelievable,
Oh, silliness, he corny, yeah.
yeah, ridiculousness. All that we can't take him 100% seriously.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Right. He does spread that message though, very, very well sometimes, and you can tell his frustrations.
And
Nothing wrong with that.
and
I appreciate it.
yes, and it's one thing I appreciate it too, and it's one thing, especially when you watch, because like I said, I grew up watching John Carpenter movies. I say the one, and oddly enough, the one I watched the most as a kid was The Thing, which is probably the one you shouldn't have watched as a kid, because it really is like not just scarring to just necessarily look at, but it's also emotionally scarring. Like you and I've talked about, I would see these transformations, and I remember thinking like, this is not okay, and
Right.
and funny enough, Rob Bottin, the guy who did the special makeup effects, we haven't talked about him at all, but he's the guy who did it all. And I guess I heard from some of the cast that his first makeup job was they did like a little dog that did not look realistic, but they made it in the dark, and I guess it made everyone nervous that he wasn't going to be able to perform. But then luckily everything else he was just killing it. But it's just something that I still to this day you can watch it, and even though it's slimy and a lot of his stuff is like not necessarily well, it's an alien, so it's going to look kind of fake anyways, but it's also 1980 81 when it was being filmed and whatnot and then being edited, so obviously for the time, yeah.
Insane.
And
It's insane.
still, like I said, still you watch the scenes in the 1982 The Thing, it's way more unsettling than watching the scenes from 2011 The Thing. So that tells you right there, the proof's in the pudding that practical effects and stuff such like that should never be taken out of the picture, because the human eye, no matter how damn good the effect is, most likely can always notice something in the back of their mind. They can always notice that something is off, and then when that happens, it takes them out of the moment. And guess what? It was good. It was a 7. You could have had a 9 or 10 just like that.
Do you think how society is today though, and what, has come out in film over the last 20, 25, 30 years, all the different level of savageness and stuff? I think The Thing would, if you released it today, would still be, it would still hold up and people would still be disturbed by it. But nowadays, people would look, I mean, it wouldn't get the appreciation it gets, I don't think, because people are almost spoon-fed that type of stuff now.
I hope that people have a certain understanding of where their wonderful stuff came from. Like when someone says like, and this is something that I just can't. My family, all my family, my wife and my kids, not all kids, but my oldest 15-year-old, they love the Saw movies, and like I said earlier, I don't like torture movies. But one thing I will say about Saw, especially the first one, but I would say ultimately, what damn good quality was put into trying to put like a story around this engineer who was doing all these crazy. I mean, the idea that you put out there was so complex. It's like, well, good for you for even trying, and that is inspired by stuff like The Thing. So you'd like to hope that people are like, oh well, this kind of looks dated, but I mean, I remember watching this movie last year, and I did not have near as much of the effects as this part is having on me right now. Even though it looks kind of maybe silly, it's also disturbing because you're seeing a human being tortured in the worst kind of way. Not only is he being killed, like I said, he's being also like I don't know what you call that. He's being eaten. He's also being like there's so much things that are happening at the same time.
Consumed. Yeah, it's gross.
It is gross.
The worst type of yeah. I was just thinking the whole time we've been sitting here talking about the thing. I keep having the flashback of them, the dogs being in the cages, and then that thing they single out that one and it just starts spraying it. You know, it's just coating it in that green slime stuff. Oh, it's just horrible.
And you've seen the dog try to get away, and it's just like I said,
what the hell is going on right now?
Yeah, you guys are breaking one of the rules. Don't harm animals. Yeah, we don't like that.
How they got those dogs to start chewing out the cages, literally, like that is fantastic movie. That dog was pulling that cage apart piece by piece,
man.
but he obviously wasn't going to get away.
It's like, and from I saw a little bit behind the scenes of that. I guess they were spraying them with this chemical that I guess it tastes like sugar or something like that, but it tastes really good. But it's also annoying because like any creature wants to be sprayed by anything, right? But yeah, I guess someone was just spraying them, and it was like pissing them off, and it was just kind of like making them move and whatnot, just kind of moving them in the right direction. But I guess someone was standing there on the Humane Society, and nothing was being done to any degree harmful to the animals, except for, of course, for the thing itself destroying him.
What about the dynamic? Think about this. The guy who is the dog obsessed. You know, obviously there's something wrong with this damn dog, but that one guy has to protect him. And usually you'd be that guy. You'd be like, nobody's going to hurt the poor dog, you know. But you're rooting against him because you know something's going on with that damn dog. Oh, yeah. So you're like, somebody just throw that guy in there too. I'm done with him. I don't want him trying to stop us from figuring out what this is right now. Mm-hmm. And I thought that character was perfect in that movie.
And there's so many perfect characters too, and there's so many special little things that they did. Like they actually had a gentleman who had no hands. He was an amputee, and he was the one who they actually had a real bear claw thing in the guy's stomach. That so when they put the hands in there, it actually was an actual sharp or whatever thing that closed in. So they just had someone they replaced the actor with someone who had no hands, and then it actually did close in on it.
Clear.
It's like Jesus.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that whole part was ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yes.
The spider crawling out. And then just right across the floor. I'll never stuff of nightmares, stuff of many of my nightmares.
But for real though, if there was like a specific hell, like hey, it's gonna be what you imagine, it would be stuff like that. It'd be probably my family members repeatedly taken by the thing, repeatedly back and forth for the rest of my eternity in hell. That's because it's that disturbing where it's like
Loki. It just starts over.
Except the difference of being kicked in the balls is you're being shown like the most disturbing images, and I'd be like, well, yeah, just kick me in the balls then, because well, that would suck too. I mean, we have balls, so we know how much that sucks.
Well, it could be like Rowdy Piper getting kneed in balls like a bunch of times by David Keith.
Keith David, by the way, we keep on doing that. I know, I keep on doing that too. I keep on doing that. But no, and it, like I said, 6-minute long fight scene. Are you serious? I remember, and I know he's a pro wrestler, and John Carpenter's probably having a fun time, but I remember watching it for the first time and just going like, they're still fighting. I mean, and you'd think like the way they were fighting too, they were like and all Roddy Piper was trying to do is put some damn sunglasses on so he could see like, oh, this is an alien. But of course, any sane person is going, okay, you're a crazy person, and if you touch me one more time, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. And of course, so all Keith David was doing was the normal thing, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
He put on a pretty good fight.
yeah, yeah,
They put
absolutely.
on a pretty good fight. Yeah, there was even some body slams and stuff.
I
You know,
know,
they
and
like,
I'm thinking, hey, maybe you guys should take a couple like months to heal before you guys go in this big brigade because you guys would be like broken for a while.
what is it? You'll know it, but what's the one-liner that will stand the test of time that came out of Piper's mouth in that movie?
Uh, I came here for two things. To chew bubblegum and kick some ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Yeah.
So silly.
Oh, yeah.
There's what about all the one-liners? Told me snake.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
John Carpenter's known for his one-liners. Like I said, he's kind of has somewhat of a corny approach, but it's something that you can't help but be like, well, no. I mean, yeah, it's corny, but and I know we usually use the word corny in a bad way, but I mean, his is corny in a John Carpenter way, and that's that's a huge compliment.
Mm-hmm. His got to pay a little homage to Assault on Precinct 13. That was a really good one, the original.
And yeah, and and I somewhat liked the remake of it too. I thought it was pretty good too. But the
It was
original,
good too.
yeah, and I like John Leguizamo, so I was excited to see that anyways. But
Yep.
the original was good, and it was like I said, it had that John Carpenter flair to where it's, like it has the like the hardcoreness of it, like the real like we have no idea who's going to die in this movie.
That little girl, they shot a little girl in that movie, like a very young girl, and he played it. Spent a long time. The heck did he say? Carpenter said something like that. He wouldn't do that these days. Like it was Jaw, it was people in theaters. I think it actually got him an X rating for the movie.
Ugh.
That little tidbit. It's like innocent bystander sitting there with a doll little girl or something like that, if I remember right. She like takes a bullet to the chest and they just keep on going with the movie. It's like something disturbing for the time.
I think it's still, no matter what year it is, I think it's still disturbing to see that. I remember watching in Breaking Bad when they killed that
But
little
nobody's
kid on the
done
motorcycle.
anything. Yeah, yeah. Nobody had ever done anything like that thus far. And I think it was like, but he's so independent. That's what makes him perfect. What he is,
Oh
he's
yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
independent.
And
He
then
doesn't go by all the norms.
I think he got burnt out after a while because they were kind of trying to demand a lot of him, and it's like Dave Chappelle's situation when he was doing filming the third season of second season of the Chappelle Show. The producer started getting involved and whatnot, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the creative guy making this, and if you try to tell me one more damn thing, I'm not going to do it anymore." And I think that's kind of what was going on with John, and he started making kind of flops and whatnot because he was trying to appease a certain audience. And I was like, I just wish you'd just make your own movies again, man, make your own stories again. But regardless, it's always nice to see, like, I got to do one about James Cameron soon, but it's not always nice to say, hey, not only is he a damn talented person, but he sounds like a good person as well. So it's I'm glad we got to talk about John Carpenter today, buddy. And he has, like you said, he has like 3 cult classics, and I would say out of those 3 cult classics, in my opinion, one movie will be like, oh, this is not just a cult classic. This is a movie that is like one of the best movies of all time as well. And for sure, I would say top 2 best sci-fi horror movies of all time. But and like I said, Halloween.
Pretty easy claim.
Yeah, he has a Halloween. All these other, he has so many wonderful things that people can say, oh, that's my favorite movie of him. But I'm so glad that we got to talk about him because he is one, like you said earlier, he is one of the OGs of like, hey, I'm just going to do it all, and he definitely deserves to be talked about.
Yes, for sure. He's primo. I'm gonna do this a lot, but primo. He's right up there. My personal favorites, in a lot of ways, his stuff is benchmark stuff. It's trendsetter for a lot of inspiration for a lot of directors, and he's used a ton of good actors. He's just one of the best.
Absolutely.
Easy, one of the best.
Well, Cole, thanks for coming on, buddy. I appreciate it. And it's something that one thing I love doing is when I get to mix it up and talk to a variety of wonderful people, I get excited again and again about like what their flavor is. And one thing I'll tell anyone who wants to listen, your flavor is you know your shit the same way I know mine. And most people I talk to on our podcast, they kind of have a good general knowledge of things, but you and I actually like get weird, and I love that. So whenever I know I get to do a podcast with you, I know that you're gonna be bringing your A game, and so I appreciate that, man. And I appreciate you, and I thank you for serving your country, and thank you for being my friend, and I love you, buddy.
Dude, same with you, man. It is an absolute pleasure to talk to you anytime I get to talk to you, and the same goes with all of the movie stuff. There's not anybody out there that I think has similar. We have a lot of similar stuff and feel the same way about it. So it's always a good time, man. You know I love you too, buddy, and hope your family stays safe. Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it a bunch, man.
Yeah.
You are the man.
Oh,
Keep
thanks,
doing
buddy.
what
I
you're
appreciate
doing.
it. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it, and love you all, and be safe, and take care, guys.
The Nerd Frenzy